Hey, babe, welcome to another episode of Closing Deals and Heels. I'm your host, Kayla Hodges. Today, I have a really amazing woman that's coming on this podcast. She was in medical device sales for 6 years. She's now in pharmaceutical sales, and she's really paving the way for herself and really showing us the example of what it's like to make a name for herself and to walk into places and get doctors to take her seriously. It's so great. I want to introduce her to you because she has the biggest heart and she's really worked her ass off to get to where she is. Miss Stephanie Hyde, can you please introduce yourself? Hi, Queen.
Hi, hello, beautiful. My name is Stephanie Hyde. I am born in Belize, raised in the US,
Amazing.
and I have been in sales for north of 8 years now, which is crazy to believe. Um, but I love everything about it. It's the highs, the lows, but more importantly, just helping people. So yeah, that's pretty much who I am.
Hey, well, we're excited to have you today. Are you excited to be here?
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we were talking a little bit about this beforehand, and we're talking about, women and the B2B space, especially pharmaceutical sales, medical device sales, and how sometimes it's like difficult to even get
Oh
into
yeah.
that industry in the first place. What did you see, or what are you seeing currently with the industry and just with sales reps even trying to get in? Like, is there even space for that, or just give us a little bit of insight?
Yeah, historically, device sales is predominantly male driven for many years. So now we are starting to see more women enter the space, which is awesome. More women to lean on and learn and grow with. But one thing I will say, getting into devices sales is pretty challenging. You do have to have a lot of sales experience or pretty much know someone who can help you get a foot in the door. It is pretty complex. We are, different ranges from OR surgery suites all the way to business, your mom and pop practice.
Mm.
But with that being said, it's awesome now, though, just to have more women into the space. But I will say one of the most challenging things is that we are in a male driven, sales industry. So a lot of the sales and tactics and things like that are predominantly like designed by men. Um, and also to, being a female in this space, sometimes you have to navigate different challenges and things that sometimes the men don't encounter.
Mm.
So it's just always it's always like a learning process.
Okay, like what? Because now I want to dive into that. What have you encountered that men don't normally encounter that could be trouble?
Well, so for instance, I sold in Manhattan, New York for 6 years, which it's very competitive. It's like a boys' club, when you go into the OR, especially in trauma. I did that for a couple of months and stuff, and it's very challenging. So, sometimes when you go meet with some of these physicians, you get different ranges from young to old, and it's hard to get them to take you seriously sometimes because they're
Mm.
like, oh, one, you're just a pretty face 9 times out of 10. So they challenge you to make sure you know your
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes.
Or sometimes they try to like flirt with you and like, oh, like let's go have dinner and discuss the deal. And it's like you have to know how to draw that line, but also get
Mhm.
them to respect you.
Yeah. That's interesting that you guys go through that there too, because I experienced that a lot in like B2B, where it's like, oh, let's go to lunch, let's go to dinner, let's go get drinks, let's celebrate, you know?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and, I was definitely younger, like in my 20s too, so I didn't know that that's not how you close a deal because that's how the guys close deals.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
The guys go to dinner, the guys have drinks, the guys go to lunch, like they get the deal done that way. So why would it be different for me? But then you're doing everything that your coworkers are doing, and for some reason, these guys are hitting on you in the process, or you can't do it, and then you feel like awkward because I can't take him to golf or whatever. Like,
Exactly. Yes. And it's something that I feel like, it's always going to be a pull and tug at. I mean,
yeah,
even 8 years, north of 8 years now, I still encounter that sometimes. But I think like just setting that boundary at the initial meeting is very important. But also being true to yourself and your ethics and knowing like what's acceptable and what's not for yourself.
mhm, yeah. So, how the hell did you get into medical device first? Because medical devices, typically an industry that takes a little bit to get into,
Yeah.
and you
Um,
just jump the gun. How did that happen?
yeah, I have to say I'm very fortunate. Like I said, it's all about who you know and just getting someone to believe in you and give you an opportunity.
Mhm.
Um, I, oops, sorry, I actually had a family friend of mine who is a vascular surgeon. Sorry
No
about
big
that.
deal. There
AirPods
you
are
go.
calling. Yeah, he's a vascular surgeon. And, when I graduated, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I graduated from LSU and I was like, okay, you know, awesome. I got my degree. Now what am I going to do? And he was like, come to the OR for a couple of weeks, couple of days, just come see if it's something you like, kind of get an idea for what it is. His girlfriend at the time, she was in medical device sales. So I was like, okay, sure. Went every day for a month, 6 a.m. every morning. Went and
Every
saw
morning
these,
for a month.
yes, every single morning for a month. It was awesome. It was really eye-opening. I got to see the OR and just the different dynamics and stuff. And then they were like, go on MedReps, which is a website that they post a lot of medical device sales jobs and
Yeah.
opportunities in pharmaceuticals. So they're like, go on there, look for like anything that says associate roles, just something to get your foot in the door. So I was like, okay. So I went on there. I found this opportunity in Louisiana. It's where I originally grew up from in New Orleans. And so I reached out to them and I was like, hey, like, I'm interested in this position. What do I need to do? Let me know. And they're like, hey, like, can you come for a ride along? How soon can you come? And I was like, tomorrow. They're like, oh, okay, great. So I went the next day, started off in wound care, not sexy at all, very gross, dealing with a lot of open wounds and cadaver skin and advanced biologics. So started off in that space. I had an amazing mentor, Keith, at that time, took me under his wing. John as well gave me the opportunity. And then from there, the sky was the limit. Just started going from selling in wound care to selling into ORs and just really changing the game with Keith. We were just making a big splash in Louisiana. We got into some of the biggest healthcare system like Ochsner, whatnot. And it was awesome. But then, that year mark came and they're like, okay, like we want to promote you. And I'm like, I can't look at another wound. Like it's
Oh
disgusting.
my God. So how does that work? So for anybody that doesn't understand, like how would you look at a wound if you're just selling something for it? Like explain that.
Yeah, so what we sold was cadaver skin. So it's pretty much like a band-aid you would put on the wound, and it's really gross. Put it on the wound and would try to help close it up for patients with like diabetes and different comorbidities and things like that.
Mm.
But Keith and I started changing the game. We were selling like these skins in the OR, so there were bigger sales. So typically, this cadaver skin would be anywhere from like 500 to 1100, and we were getting like these massive like burn cases, and we were selling these cadaver skins for a person that needed their whole body pretty much covered. And that $1,000 went to like 15,000 to 20 grand. So the company,
But what happens? So like somebody dies and they donate their body to science, or what happens?
yes,
And then you
yes,
sell the donation?
yes.
Dear God.
And I had to keep samples in my freezer to do
No,
demos with.
no.
My friends were like, we want nothing out of your freezer. That is disgusting.
Oh my God. Okay. Dear Lord, that's so sad. So you have bits and pieces of people's skin that you're bringing in.
Yep.
Horrible. All right. So that's so interesting. I'm like, how are people selling that? That's very, very interesting. Okay. So when you are like going there with it though, how did you see the wounds still?
Yeah,
Were you
so
in
I
the OR participating or like
I'm
on the
sorry.
outside, or how does that work?
So there's actually a wound care in pretty much a lot of the hospitals in Louisiana. There's some pretty big ones there. So you would just go to the wound care center. A lot of diabetic patients, diabetes is just so high, and it still is. It continues to grow.
It's so sad.
So you would go there, yeah, and they would literally, the doctors would come in, the patients come in. If the infection got too bad, they would amputate a leg, a toe, and then from there, their life expectancy would drop drastically. So what we were trying to do is close up those wounds so we can give them more time and
Yeah.
just,
And so just being around that all the time, it just like felt emotionally exhausting, or what was going on?
Oh, yes. It was emotionally, just physically, you name it. And it was just really sad because you would build relationships with these patients coming in every week. And then sometimes they'd be doing so great. We're like, yes, we almost have it closed. And then they would get an infection and we had to start back at, square one. And two, I think, sometimes some of the doctors, when they're doing this for so long, it's kind of like, well, the patients aren't being compliant. It's just going downhill. It's like, do we keep doing this or do we just go ahead and amputate?
Jeez.
So yeah, it was really depressing. After a while, it was just like, okay, like, it's hard and these patients can't bathe, they can't get the wound wet. So yeah.
Okay, yikes. All right. So after that, instead of being promoted, where did you go next?
So they gave me opportunity to move to Arizona, surprisingly, or to Texas. And at that point, I was like, I'm done with wound care. I just want to be in an OR. That's it. So I decided to take a chance and I moved to New York, Manhattan, and I
Mm.
worked in trauma.
Okay.
Yeah. And
How does that
that
work? I'm so
was,
confused. Like, how does like you doing medical device allow you to be in an OR, allow you to be there because they're doing stuff and you're just selling something. So help me understand that.
yeah. Yeah, so what happens is when these physicians go into surgery, we as reps will come in and we come with our products and we'll teach them how to apply it properly for the patients.
Wow.
So we would train the residents, we would train the doctors, and we would be in the OR scrubbed up and just helping them navigate on how to properly apply the devices into the patients.
Okay, so now I understand. Okay. That's so interesting. So you got to see all these like burn victims and putting skin on these burn victims and stuff inside of an OR.
Amputations, gangrene, you know it. And we'll walk down and be like, all right, what
Pass
does everyone
out?
want for lunch now? No,
Really? Okay. Yeah, I
no.
used to volunteer in a ER. Hold on really fast. I got my daughter an electric guitar for her Christmas. I could hear it in the background. Um, I think that, what I was saying is that I used to volunteer at an ER because I wanted to be a doctor. And there was a couple of times where I almost fainted, like had broke his arm and I was fainted, or like a couple other things that I, like can't talk about, like that I was just like, oh my God. So interesting, like being in there and seeing that environment is so cool though. I always wanted to do that. That's super cool. So why, when you go to Manhattan, you're in trauma now,
Hmm.
trauma unit. How was it sales wise? Like, what did you see that was like the funnest part? And then what did you see that was like the hardest part for you?
Yeah, so trauma is very unique. When I spoke to Keith, my mentor at the time, he was like, are you sure this is what you want to do? And I'm like, yeah, baby, I'm in New York, I'm in Manhattan, like, sign me up. And you're on call 24/7 pretty much, no holidays, no weekends. So anytime there's a car accident or, I worked at Bellevue Hospital, which is like huge in New York, which is like the community hospital where inmates would stab each other and things like that. So it would be emergency cases. They would come in and we would have to put like plates and screws and rods into their bodies to like patch them up pretty much and, fuse the bones
And
together
you
and things
were
like
selling
that.
the screws and the plates.
Yep.
And so you had to go
Yes.
to the OR and show them how to use your screws and plates.
Yes.
How do you get training
Um,
for that? Like they just like trick you and then
I was just about to say it was a crash course. So at the time, the company I worked for just got acquired by another big company. There was a lot of changes going on, and so they're like, "Okay, come in." So there was a warehouse, so I had to go pick out trays, and no one taught me. Like they gave me a handbook, like a thick book, pick out a tray and learn every single screw, what it's used for, how it's used, what it does, like how it lags and different things, what are different plates for different parts of the bones, whether it's the hands or the foot. So they start you off in the hands because that's pretty easy. And then from there, you work down to like the knees and foot and things like that. I remember my first case it was like maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I had just been training, looking at these trays and studying and observing a couple of cases with some experienced doctors.
Yeah.
And we were short staffed. And so they're like, hey, we need you to go cover a case. And I was like, what? I've never done this procedure. Like I've never even seen this done before. And they were like, yeah, like we need you to go cover this case. So I was like, oh my God. So I'm like driving from,
Perfect.
yeah, I'm driving from the warehouse. It's like an hour drive back into Manhattan. I'm driving. I'm like YouTubing, literally YouTubing how to put this plate and screw in and watching videos of like how this is done literally an hour before the case.
Dear God.
So yeah. So like you're constantly being thrown into situations like that, and it's scary, but you just kind of have to like take a deep breath and like I can do this, and just learn as much as you can. There's a lot of studying, but when you're thrown into cases like that, or let's say a screw breaks, or there's complications in a surgery, you have to remain composure and you have to continue to guide that doctor on how to successfully complete that surgery with your plates or screws. And if not, then they can like kick you out and be like, call our other rep in, like you're not qualified, we don't have time. So that like the OR experience is a whole nother beast. But yeah,
And so how do you get
high
paid?
stress.
Because you're in there, right? So it's not like you're
Yeah.
like pulling on different hospitals. You're just selling your stuff to one hospital.
No, so we covered numerous hospitals and we would have to pull trays from one hospital to the other hospital and we had to get it sterilized. So we would get paid if the doctor would use our tray and our plates and our screws. That's how we got paid. Believe it or not, it was very cutthroat. Like some reps would go like punch holes in your trays. So if they called you and you had holes in your trays, you're not sterile. You can't do the surgery. So the next rep would have to do it.
Oh
So
my God. No.
yeah, it's Manhattan, it's New York.
Jesus.
Yeah.
God, that's
Um,
life. That's my straight. Okay, so you got paid. So it was like a salary plus a commission or bonuses or what?
yes, so it was salary plus commissions. And so we got salary and commission, and then from there, we wouldn't really get bonuses that much because at the time I was still like considered like an associate rep, so I was under someone. But if you were more senior rep, then you would get bonuses on top of that.
So why leave all that craziness?
Great question. So it was, I think it was like 3 in the morning. It was a weekend. I'm climbing on top
The
of like,
exact moment.
oh yeah. I'm like climbing like that whole day. I covered a bunch of cases. I had to do it with Central Sterile. It's disgusting. I'm like climbing on top of bins, like trying to find the screw to complete my tray. I look down. I'm like, if I fall right now, like this is it. Like that's it. Like I'm on workman's comp. Like, I don't know. I'm like, this isn't for me. Like, I can't keep doing this OR. Like, I'm exhausted. I haven't slept. I was missing the holidays with my family. And the company was really starting to shift. And my mentor, who was mentoring me, had been at the company for many years. And she had just had a conversation with me a couple of days prior. I was like, hey, I'm leaving. I'm taking an international role. Like, if you know what's best for you, you should probably find something else too. So I was like, okay, well, thanks, girl. Like, thanks for looking out. Like, I appreciate you. Yeah.
And then, so you just, that day you're like, I'm done. Then you quit.
Yeah, I quit. I gave them my 2 weeks notice and then I left. But I had another opportunity lined up with a big company. It was one of the top 5 companies in the US. And I went and sold spinal cord stimulators. So that was really fun. So I transitioned, but still in OR, but not as hectic.
Okay. And then how'd you get from there to selling pharma sales for iBugs?
Yeah, so when I was selling the spinal cord stimulators, they had acquired another company, and it was like a sister company. We worked very closely, and that's where I went to sell like lasers and stuff, which is like the next step right before robotics. It's lasers. So I did that for 5 years. I loved it, super passionate. Super. I was a patient. I had to use it. It was sexy, selling in New York. It was fun. However, I decided then to move to Virginia to be
New
with
York.
my part. I'm
Uh,
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, every girl comes when you come to that stage where like you're super successful, you're doing great work, and then you have a relationship. And it had been with someone I had been with since since college, sorry.
Yeah.
College. And, at some point you kind of feel like, okay, I have to choose my career or my relationship.
Yeah.
And I just needed a more work-life balance. And I thought the relationship was going to take the next step and, eventually like marriage and
Yeah.
kids and everything. And yeah, so I decided then to transition into pharmaceutical sales because there's more work-life balance. And this new company that I work with was also launching a new product in the space that I had been selling into for 5 years. So I was very well versed in, how it works and things like that. And it's an amazing company. I'm so blessed to be with them. So I'm, made the transition and then I moved to Virginia.
Hmm. Okay. So lots of moving around, lots of, learning and developing and like willing to go above and beyond and willing to be resourceful, right?
Yeah.
When like shit hits the fan. The moving for like a relationship, I think that's really interesting that you brought that up because I don't think that's wrong. I think that women, like we are wired for family over our career.
Mhm.
And I
Yes.
think that there's a stigma that's happened, unfortunately, of like boss babe, like us do everything and go, 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 which I loved that for the season, that it helped me, right? Like, for being in a place where I had to be in this masculine role and take care of everything, it gave me like permission, like, yeah, I can do it. But like, I don't want to do that if I don't have to.
Right.
And I think that there is a place for us to like lead and us, and I'm sorry if this upsets anybody, not trying to do that. But if there's a place for you to lead and there's a place for you to get shit done, and there's a place for you to make money all at the same time without neglecting a huge part of who you are, which is like family, which is like the love side of us. Like we're not meant to provide everything. That's not why I was built. I want to be in a place where I co-create with somebody, and especially, how old are you, Stephanie?
So I'm 32 now.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So, you have a late 20s, early 30s, and like now you're wanting to, produce life, right? Possibly.
Yes.
And our bodies change and we see a little baby walk by and we're like, oh my God, like, so there's just different dynamics and different hormones and different things that are happening. And instead of us giving us labels of what we could and couldn't do, and just embracing it and be like, oh, it's okay. There's changes here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. I think as women too, and especially being in New York, I had that super masculine energy. I mean, times at 10. And I did notice, when I was with my partner, I was very masculine and like, no, we got to get a deal done, closing 100 plus K deals and like just super masculine.
Yeah.
And it did come to a point where I had to ask myself, like, is this all I want in life or do I want more? And
Mm,
I don't think you saying that should upset anyone because I personally do feel like as women, it's very hard for us to be feminine, and I feel like it's under attack. And people have the wrong idea of what it is to be feminine
yes.
and to be masculine.
Yes. Or that you have to pick one or the other,
Yes.
right? Like we need both. I definitely need both to get my shit done. However, I've noticed the older that I'm getting, me doing things from a place of creativity and a place of feminine energy and a place of love and a place of where I'm grounded and I'm like calmer. I actually am more effective than when I'm just trying to push my way through to make something happen. And I never knew that that was possible. And if I was telling myself this even 5 years ago, I would think that I was crazy. I'm like, oh, like what? Like, nah, like that's so stupid. Like, I just need to get shit done. Like, I don't have time for all that stuff. And people
Right.
that were all more like soft and everything, like they would annoy me almost because I needed to get shit done because I didn't understand that there was another way to get something done. And the way that I was doing something was from a place of needing to get validation from a place of success or wanting love from being enough through my
Yes.
success versus another way where I already feel enough and I'm in a place where I'm grounded and loving and I'm getting more done because I'm more effective because my cup is full,
Hmm.
you
Oh
know?
yeah. I mean, I feel like we are, we're more creative when we're flowing in our femininity versus our
Mhm,
masculine. Like to your point, it's just fight or flight. You're thinking irrationally. You're not really feeling and, like you're not really feeling like listening to your own intuition. And
mhm,
you have to be in your soft girl era, some people call it, in order to tap into that and really understand what you need at this time in life.
mhm. So let's talk about the soft girl era. Um, you, Miss Stephanie, when did you come and start working with us? Like, how long ago was that?
So it was right when I moved here, so a year, we just made a year.
Wow. Oh my God.
Hmm.
So what happened to where you were like, hey, I need extra training? Like, what was that transition? Because you've been in sales for a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, what was it for you? Was just like the approach is different in pharma sales, or like, what was it for you?
I think that's a great question. So for me, when you join a lot of companies, you're always promised that you're going to get this mentorship, you're going to get this amazing
Yeah.
yeah, this amazing training. You're going to
Yeah.
get all these things, right? And you do. Like, companies do invest a lot of money and time into it, but everyone's unique in their own way, and we can't all sell the same way. So for me, I just kind of had enough. I was like, all right, like I've been doing this for so many years. I'm tired of selling masculine. I'm so sick of it. Like it got me to where I'm at, but now I want to go to the next level and I want to do it with like just pure joy. And just be more creative. And so I saw some of your Instagram posts and things like that. And I was like, yes, she gets it. Like there's, no one else out there is doing it. And listen, I have bought other sales
Yeah.
courses and trainings in the past, but it was all predominantly led by men. So it's very masculine. And also too, I'm not selling in Manhattan anymore. I'm in Virginia. So it's a lot more laid back. If
Yeah.
I walk in there with that New York, like masculinity, I would turn people off. So,
Yeah.
turn them off and they wouldn't want to talk to me. Um, so I decided like, hey, like I need to invest in myself, but also I need to find someone that aligns with the type of selling style that I want to step
Mhm,
into.
mhm.
So that's how I started to work with you guys. And yeah.
So what was your experience? So you were in Virginia and you're just starting to sell and you just felt like you weren't connecting with the people, or what did you feel like was happening?
Yeah, so I left my book of business in New York, moved to a new
Yeah.
territory, no friends, no family, no connections. Like, no, I didn't know any of these doctors here. So when I would go in, I felt like I was coming off a little too strong, like, the New York, like hustle bustle, let's get things done. Like, hey, he's your doctor and I need to talk to him. And they're like, whoa, 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 like, who are you? Like, you're not from around here, we can tell by the way you dress. One, so trigger.
Yeah.
um, Two, yeah, the tonality, the, super aggressive, like they're like, no, like you don't do things like that, like, with processes. Um,
Just like, let me just talk to the man. Come on, let's go.
right. I'm like, oh, that's his office. Okay, thank you. They're like, well, no. Um,
Okay. And so you're like, okay,
um,
shit. Like,
So I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, let me try to like approach this from a different perspective. And so like I joined your team and I started to go through the training. And
yeah.
I think I had to get back to the why because at this point in my life, I'll be honest with you, I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was. I felt like I hit rock bottom in my life. I lost like this identity. I held my identity in my career, my previous job. I held my identity in my relationship. I held my identity in my relationships with my friends. And then when I moved here, I didn't have any of those things anymore. It was just me. And I was like, who the hell am I?
Mhm.
I don't know. And it was really challenging because I spent so much time alone and it was pure isolation.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, all right, I need to make friends with like-minded women and people like myself. I need to get good at my sales. I need to just revamp myself. Like, sky's limit opportunity.
Mm,
And I believe timing is everything, and I am a strong believer of God and faith. And I do feel like God put me where I needed to be in this season, and also led me to you and the elite saleswomen, just because I now know who I am, and it's not dependent on my career, my relationships, or my romantic relationship or anything like that.
mm,
And I do feel like I'm stepping into this higher version of myself,
mm,
and I'm really proud and just happy with where I'm going right now in
mm.
life.
I'm proud of you too. I forgot all about this, and we don't have to go into it, but I do remember that you were going through a lot, and I forgot, was it our team that we just kept reaching out to? Is that what was happening?
Yes, yes. So I,
We're like, where is
yes.
this girl?
No, I honestly, that's what I needed though. I went into isolation. I went into like a deep depression. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just putting my head down and putting the blinders on and like
Yeah.
focus, focus. Your amazing team kept reaching out, and then I would join the calls sporadically. I wasn't even showing up for myself. And when I did, you guys always greeted me with like a warm smile, like, hey, like, we're so happy to see your beautiful face. Like, how are you? And just the morning calls, honestly, like some mornings I'm like, I don't feel like getting out of bed, but I had to, like this is a new company, a new job. Like, I don't have a track record with them. They took a chance on me and I had to show up. So your team was honestly amazing, and they, listened. Remember you and I had a conversation. I'm like crying and bawling, like, Gail, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And you're like, girl, hold on. Here's my personal cell. Like, if you need anything, text me. And you're like, I have someone. I'm like, I need a mentor. I need like a therapist. I don't know. And you connected me with someone like that same day. And, I've been working with that other person for many months, and it just has been a complete game changer.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. Yeah, I still work with her. So I think it's really interesting because there's different people for different aspects, that can help
Hmm.
and they can go in deep. And I think that we all have trauma that we go through, and none of us address this enough because the word trauma is just so overused today. Oh, it's trauma, you have trauma. Like we have shit that we go through and it stores in our bodies. And then we don't process that stuff. And then I can't imagine the years of you being around like death and people that are sick and all that stuff and how it affected you too, even
Hmm.
subconsciously. So I think that's interesting. And storing all that, storing the move, where like the identity loss, like all the stuff, the personal things you were going through and all this stored in your body and how it wasn't serving you. And not only that, but you have 7 generations deep of trauma that's been passed down genetically, and that's scientific fact. In your body that you're storing as well. So not only do you have to process your own shit, you have to process like your family shit too. Like,
Yeah.
how unfair, right? And then we don't take care of it, and we keep going through the mundane every day, and we're like, "Well, I wonder why I don't feel good." And it's because 'cause you're carrying around all this crap inside of you, and we don't know how to process it or how to get rid of it, and so then we're feeling stuck, you know?
Yeah. And also too, I have to say, like, being my type of personality too, I think as women, we're so used to like giving so much to others around us that sometimes we don't know how to ask for help or when to ask for help. And I was just fortunate and blessed at that time that I had you and your team, where it was really hard for me to ask for help. I'm talking to my family. Mom's like, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing great. Just left the gym. Like, calling a little bit, mom. Like, everything's awesome.
That's funny. That's interesting that you
Yeah.
said that. It's funny because I used to do the same thing with my family. My family and we didn't really talk for like years when I was struggling. And every time they talked to me, I told them I was doing great. And I would tell them about all the amazing things that I was doing. This is great. I'm doing this project, this, and I'm miserable on the inside. But I think that, Stephanie, it's a form of self-love to ask for help, loving
Yes.
yourself
Hmm.
enough to ask for that help. So like you've grown so much I'm really, really proud of you for how much work you've done internally, how much work you've done skill wise. I want to go into the skills just a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
what is the biggest shift for you? Like, even when you're like, from everything that you learned, by going into a more softer approach, when you're walking into these offices and how you're making sure to like keep meetings versus people pushing them off. Like, what specific things have you learned that maybe you can help with, like another woman that's watching this or listening to this right now, where she's in B2B and she's trying to go into these doctors' offices and she's having a hard time? What are a couple things that you've learned that would really help her?
I would have to say one, like you said, you have to love yourself first, but also you have to invest in yourself because no one's going to invest in you
Yeah.
the way you will. So I think surrounding yourself with a group of like-minded people and people that can help you elevate, level up your skills, and people that you can, come to fall flat on your face 10 times and they're not judging you. We're still cheering you on, like, let's go. I think that's super important. And it's okay to fail. It's okay. It's a learning process. So I would say for me, I went from being number one when I left my company. I had finished number one in the sales team to at the very bottom. Talk about an ego, like punch to the gut. Like, okay, I'm at the bottom. Cool. I think for me, it was just always reminding myself that, hey, this is not failure; it's opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And also I would say like just really understanding your customers. And I know we have these old mentalities like, oh, let's talk about us when we go in. They care about our product and what we can do. And it's like, no, what can we do for them?
Mhm.
And I think your training and, just really building that gap has been huge.
Mm.
And just the tonality too, because sometimes we can come in and like we can think we're connecting with them and we can think that we're helping them. But if we're not asking the right questions and we're not using the right tone and we're, using trigger words, it's like having an ex that just triggers you all the time, like no one, you don't want to be around them. Like who wants to do business with you? So for me, I would say like those were the three things that I really
What's the
felt
trigger
like
word?
elevated me.
Something that would trigger them
Oh,
to.
like follow up, like that's the number one thing. Like, okay, follow up. Like I don't even really use any of them anymore. So I'm like, what's a good trigger
What
word?
is
Which is good.
Okay, I understand what you mean by that. Yeah, checking in, following up with you. What about like the making the small talk, like when you go
Uh,
in? Like, do you have a gatekeeper that you're getting past, right? Like, what's the trick for that?
Yeah, so I was just about to say, like, I was gonna say, like, whenever you come in and you're like, oh, hey, how are you doing? Like, how's the weather outside? Like, all that. Like, they're annoyed. They're like, oh, here we go again. I have someone on hold. Like, I have emails, the phone's ringing off the hook. So for me, what I've learned and just with your sales and process everything is just coming in and letting them know, like, hey, like, I'm here to talk to whoever's in charge that we can help make your job more efficient, but also make the doctor's time more efficient. And that way you guys can get more time back in the
Yeah.
practice and
Yeah.
money, more time and money back into the practice. So just really understanding each practice. So like before I go in, I like to do a little research. Now I actually have a book of business being here for a year now, a year and 2 months. I can actually now ask other offices like, hey, what's the scoop on this office? Like, who's the main person? So it's cool
Yeah.
because now I have those relationships and I was able to build that. And I would say too, just going into pharma sales too, it's all about repeat business. And one thing I did find with your red sales training that was huge is that once you connect with them once, they want to help you more. And especially with a great product, they want to do more.
Mm,
So we actually had a call a couple weeks ago and I was talking to one of the girls on your team and I was like, yeah, like, they have like a list of repeat physicians that are constantly prescribing and I was number 5 on there. We have over 20 doctors like repeatedly writing because they understand they have a problem
yeah.
and my product is a solution for that.
Yes. And you're talking about the outcome for this person, not only just for the patient, but for the doctor's office and consistently talking about that outcome. And that's the gap that you were talking about closing. So now they're more inclined because they want to solve the problem. And you've already conveyed that your solution or that your product is the solution without telling them.
Exactly.
This is the solution. This is no, you're like, hey, do you want to get this? Okay, then let's do this, right? So it's really beautiful how you've navigated that. I'm really proud of you. What would you tell your younger self? Like, what's a piece of advice you would give to her?
I would give my younger self, and I have nieces and nephews, and I always tell them, and for me, I would say is love yourself. And I know this is so
Yeah.
cliche, and I know we all should, but seriously, if you don't love yourself, you're not going to put in the work. You're not going to do the things that you need to for yourself. And this
Mhm.
is in all areas of your life, not just career wise. If you love yourself, you're going to go to the gym, you're going to eat healthy, you're going to work out, you're going to do things that can better yourself.
Mhm.
Um, and I would say for me, sorry. I would say for me, I would tell my younger self to just love yourself, but also give yourself grace because it's
Mhm.
so easy to have that negative self talk or that negative, you know, like behind you, like in your ear, like, oh, you're not good enough, or you're just, sleeping, or, things like that. So I would say just love yourself and give yourself grace.
Yeah, I think that we all go through that, and I think the difference is it's not that those voices don't come up or like those thoughts don't come up. It's like the willingness to take responsibility to address those and continuously go forward anyways, because they're going to come up, but you can listen to them or you can give yourself a new perspective and change. So having the ability to continuously doing that, get out of bed, like how you talked about, like I have to get out of bed because I have a commitment here. I have to prove myself again, and then coming from a place where like that is like proving, then
Mhm.
coming from another place where you're like, hey, I'm doing this because I have a bigger why, and talked about a why that's actually going to support you in your vision and what you're trying to accomplish. So what about a woman that's listening right now? Like, what's one piece of advice you would give to her?
I would say stop making excuses and just go ahead and, stop procrastinating. As women, we always want to put other things and people first, but we need to stop procrastinating, go ahead and commit, and just truly like become the best version of yourself and
Yeah.
walk with your head high. Like, seriously.
Yes. Head held high and just remembering how important you are. Um,
Hmm.
we are so special. Women are so special. You are literally a human portal that can create life. And that's so magical. And I think that there's something that's really unique about you learning to love yourself and honor yourself and hold space, for yourself, trying to navigate this thing called life.
I would say too, like, when I first joined your course, I thought it was just going to be like sales and like, okay, role play, scripting,
Yeah.
tonality, but it was so much more.
Yeah.
It's you really teach women how to empower themselves, but also how to empower each other. Because
Yeah.
especially in sales, it's so, it's cutthroat. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, like it's constant competition. People kind of want to help you, but then they don't.
Yeah.
Where like with this group of women, it's like, no, we all are here to help each other. We team up, we role play. I had an amazing girl that I was working with from, your team as well. We would role play 4 times a week.
Oh
And
my God.
she was, yeah. And she was on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. The time was amazing. We made it work. And it's just really cool though that like I was able to find a buddy where if like I couldn't make a session, I would watch the recordings and she would fill me in and give me her notes, and like we would
Oh my
just,
God. So cool.
yeah, we would hype each other up and like, all right, girl, let's do this. Like, so
Yeah.
it was a really, I felt like I built like a friend where I would probably like, okay, you like, I want you in my wedding.
Yeah. Oh my God. Who is it?
Esmeralda, she
Oh
is
my
the
God.
sweetest.
Oh my God, it's
Yeah.
so sweet. Hell yeah, it's amazing. Okay, great. I love that. I think that we as women get to honor each other and collaborate. And if we've grown up in an environment where we don't trust women, it's hard to do that. So like really breaking the mold and learning how to heal relationships with women so that we can continuously create healthy relationships with women. And so our kids can one day too, and really show them what it's like. And it starts with us taking responsibility and really changing the way women perceive themselves and really caring about other women when we're around them and making them feel seen.
Yeah, I would say like I grew up with sisters. I'm the youngest. I was in a sorority, so like I was always around strong women. But sometimes in like corporate America, it's really challenging to
Yeah.
find women that can be mentors. And I struggled with that personally for many years, and it was just really nice though to know that like, hey, within this community, there's so many different women from so many different, sales all over the world. And it was really cool though to just see that, hey, like we were all like reaching down, grabbing a hand and lifting each other up and like, how can I help?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And we're going to continue to do that. I'm so, so grateful that you were able to come on today, Stephanie. Any last words?
No, I just want to thank you. I want to acknowledge you for
Thanks.
being an amazing human being and just living out your why. And, just know that you're helping so many women around this world, not just me, and you're going to continue to. And I appreciate you and I love you. And I am so grateful for you and
Thank
your
you.
team.
Thank you. I receive you. I'll take it all in. Thank you so much. And for the woman that's watching this right now or listening to this right now, we just want to let you know that you're super important. And there's a reason why you're here. And whatever mess you've been through is for a purpose. The bigger the mess, the bigger the message that you have. And like you can do it. We believe in you. And thank you so much for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Oh,
Bye.
and follow Stephanie on visionary_for_health. Is that on Instagram or where's the best place?
Instagram. Yeah, it's Instagram.
Okay, perfect. All right, bye, Lise.
Bye.